High above the South American rainforest hides a lost world that time entirely forgot. To reach it, we must journey deep into the remote wilderness of Venezuela's Gran Sabana. Our target is Mount Roraima, a prehistoric tabletop mountain known locally as a Tepui. The journey begins on foot in the indigenous village of Tepui, the final outpost of civilization. From here, it is a grueling, multi-day trek just to reach the base of the massive cliffs. The savanna is deceptive, the heat is suffocating, and the mountain never seems to get any closer. We cross rushing, crystal-clear rivers that flow directly off the cliffs of the lost world above. Looking up at the monolithic walls, it feels like we are approaching the edge of the earth. The tepuis create their own violent microclimates. Clear skies can turn into torrential rain in seconds. But the storms leave behind an atmosphere of pure, prehistoric magic. As we reach the foothills, the open savanna vanishes into a dark, impenetrable cloud forest. The air here is thick, heavy, and buzzing with life found nowhere else on the planet. The path turns violently upward. Every step is a battle against slick mud and tangled roots. The sheer cliffs now tower directly overhead, blocking out the sun and casting a heavy shadow. We set up base camp right against the wall. The sheer scale of the rock is deeply humbling. Above us, waterfalls fall so far they turn entirely into mist before they ever hit the ground. Sitting at the base, you can't help but wonder what alien landscape is waiting at the top. Tomorrow, we leave the earth behind and attempt to climb the vertical wall. Morning arrives without sunlight. The mist is so thick it feels like we are breathing water. There is only one way up this impenetrable fortress, a narrow, natural ramp formed by a collapsed cliff. Stepping onto the ramp, the trek instantly transforms into a brutal, vertical scramble. You aren't hiking anymore. You are clawing your way up through mud, wet roots, and slick rock. The ledge narrows drastically. One misstep to the left, and it is a sheer drop into the abyss. We reach the Pass of Tears, a section of the cliff where the mountain literally weeps over the trail. There is no way around it. You just have to hold your breath and push through the freezing deluge. Drenched and exhausted, we realize the rock itself has changed. We are entering an older geological era. The soil is so poor here that the plants have turned to a different source of nutrients, meat. The physical toll is immense. At over 7,000 feet, the air is thinning rapidly. But whenever the clouds break, the mountain reminds you exactly how high you have climbed. We enter the final bottleneck, a tight, dark fissure in the rock that guards the summit. The light at the end of the tunnel isn't the sun. It's the heavy, perpetual fog of the tabletop. With one final, exhausting push, we reach over the edge of the plateau. Every muscle burns, but the exhaustion instantly vanishes the second you look up. We have done it. We have breached the fortress and entered the lost world. Nothing up here makes sense. It looks like the charred surface of a forgotten, alien planet. The climb was just the beginning. Now we have to survive the summit. Stepping onto the plateau feels like crossing over into another dimension. The fog instantly swallows the world behind us. There is no dirt here, just 2 billion years of ancient, blackened sandstone relentlessly carved by wind and water. As the mist shifts, a surreal gallery of gravity-defying stone monuments reveals itself. Wandering through these natural stone labyrinths, you lose your sense of direction almost immediately. Life here has evolved in complete isolation from the rest of the planet, leading to creatures found nowhere else. This is the Roraima pebble toad. It never learned how to hop or swim. When threatened, it simply curls up and rolls away like a stone. Every inch of this summit is a battle for survival. The carnivorous plants dominate, feeding on the few insects blown up by the wind. There are no seasons here, just wild mood swings. In minutes, freezing fog can turn into blistering, unfiltered sunlight. And just as fast, the skies will violently tear open, dumping oceans of water onto the impermeable rock. Because the rock cannot absorb water, the summit instantly transforms into a network of raging, shallow rivers. The rivers drain into massive, terrifying sinkholes called seamers, plummeting straight into the dark, hollow belly of the mountain. To survive the brutal nights, we must find shelter in the hotels, shallow caves carved into the rock by ancient rivers. These natural rock overhangs provide the only sanctuary from the relentless wind and rain of the summit. Cooking a warm meal in a dry cave, perched on a rock floating in the sky, is a feeling you can never replicate. The storm finally breaks, washing the atmosphere completely clean just in time for nightfall. With zero light pollution and sitting above the cloud layer, the universe feels close enough to touch. Up here, disconnected from the entire human race, the silence is so profound it actually rings in your ears. Tomorrow, we push even deeper into the lost world to find the Valley of Crystals. The true alien landscape awaits. As morning breaks over the plateau, we push further into the unknown, striking out toward the deepest parts of the summit. Miles away from our camp, the blackened stone begins to change, sparkling as if the ground is covered in shattered glass. We have reached the Valley of Crystals, a surreal depression on the summit filled entirely with raw, unpolished quartz. These aren't tiny fragments. They are massive, geometric spikes of pure crystal formed over billions of years. Over deep geologic time, wind and water eroded the softer sandstone, leaving only these indestructible jewels behind. But there is a strict rule in the lost world. You cannot take a single crystal. The mountain keeps what belongs to it. Leaving the crystals, the plateau becomes violent and torn, scarred by massive, bottomless fissures. Navigating this area means leaping across open voids, knowing there is nothing but hundreds of feet of empty air below. In the middle of this absolute isolation, we find a strange, man-made monument standing against the wind. This is Punto Triple, the exact geographic point where three nations collide. Standing here, you are simultaneously in Venezuela, Brazil, and Guyana, all while floating 9,000 feet in the sky. It is a surreal geopolitical anchor in a landscape that feels like it shouldn't belong to any country on Earth. We leave the border and push toward the Guyanese edge, hoping to catch a glimpse of the unbroken jungle below. We reach the prow, a terrifying overhang that juts out over nothingness like the front of a colossal ship. The winds here are so violent that standing is impossible. You have to crawl to the edge to look over. For a few fleeting seconds, the clouds rip apart, revealing an endless, untouched ocean of green. Staring down at an untamed wilderness where no human has ever walked makes you realize how small we truly are. The mountain closes the curtain. Tomorrow, we must face the terrifying reality of getting back down. After days of exploring the harsh, wind-battered surface, we seek out the mountain's hidden, quieter sanctuaries. We navigate across a strange expanse of fractured stone that looks exactly like the scales of a sleeping dragon. Hidden deep within the stone depressions are lost jacuzzis, a series of pristine, crystal-lined natural pools. They look incredibly inviting, but the water is near freezing, constantly refreshed by the mountain's relentless rain. Even in these freezing, nutrient-starved pools, microscopic, highly specialized organisms have found a way to thrive. Taking the plunge is a massive shock to the system, but it washes away days of brutal trekking mud and sweat. But you cannot stay wet for long. The high-altitude wind will freeze you straight to the bone. We press on toward a massive, pitch-black fissure in the earth, the entrance to the Crystal Eyes Cave. Roraima isn't just a solid block of stone. It is hollowed out by one of the largest quartzite cave systems in the world. Inside, the rules of geology change again. Strange, horizontal silica formations grow sideways, defying gravity entirely. In this absolute, permanent darkness, entirely new species of blind insects and arachnids rule the underground. We follow the deafening roar of an underground river that is actively tearing the mountain apart from the inside out. The tunnels open into massive subterranean cathedrals, their walls glittering with raw, unmined quartz. Turning off the light, you experience a sensory deprivation so absolute it feels physically heavy. The darkness here is ancient and untouched. It is a profound relief to finally turn the light back on. Climbing back toward the surface, Even the dreary, freezing fog of the plateau feels incredibly welcoming. But the mountain is done playing host. A massive, violent storm front is rapidly rolling in to sweep the summit. Our time in the lost world is up. Tomorrow, we must face the treacherous, terrifying reality of the vertical descent. The mountain demands that we leave. A violent tempest rolls over the plateau, plunging the temperature to near freezing. Approaching the edge, the terrifying reality sets in. Going down is infinitely more dangerous than climbing up. Gravity is no longer your friend. Every single step down the steep, slick rock sends a jarring shockwave straight through your knees. The storm has enraged the pass of tears. The waterfall is a blinding, deafening wall of freezing water that we must blindly cross. You have to climb down completely backward, clinging desperately to slick roots over an absolute abyss. Finally hitting the jungle floor, a massive wave of pure, exhausted relief washes entirely over you. Breaking back out into the open savanna, the freezing rain of the summit is instantly replaced by blistering tropical heat. Looking back, the monolithic fortress towers into the clouds, completely unbothered by our fleeting presence. Crossing the rivers again, the icy water washes away the dirt, but the heavy fatigue remains burned into your muscles. On our final night in the wilderness, the physical exhaustion is entirely overshadowed by a profound mental quiet. Surviving the lost world strips away the noise of modern life, leaving you with nothing but raw perspective. Returning to the village of Pararaipai, the expedition officially ends, but the sheer scale of the journey lingers. We leave the indigenous lands behind, driving back toward a world of concrete and connectivity. Mount Roraima is a fierce reminder that true, untouched wilderness still exists on our planet. It is a prehistoric sanctuary in the sky, a place where time simply stopped 2 billion years ago. You do not conquer the lost world, you merely survive it, carrying its ancient silence back with you. Some mysteries of the earth are meant to remain untouched, guarded by vertical walls and howling winds. Keep exploring the unknown, subscribe to Wander Lens. But our expedition into the heart of Venezuela's lost world is far from over. Roraima was only the beginning. To truly understand the scale of these prehistoric landscapes, we have charted a bush plain deep into the untamed Amazon basin. We land in Canema, a remote, off-the-grid settlement that serves as the gateway to the most isolated tepuis on the continent. There are no roads here. The only way deeper into the wilderness is by navigating the ancient, winding river systems. We head upriver. The water is stained the color of dark tea, rich with tannins washed down from the jungle canopy over millions of years. Slowly, the horizon begins to change. The familiar, towering walls of the tepuis start closing in around the riverbanks. The journey is anything but smooth. The guides battle fierce rapids, reading the hidden, dangerous rocks just inches below the surface. When the rapids become too violent, we are forced into the water, dragging the heavy dugout canoe by hand against the crushing current. Branching off into the Churon River, the canopy thickens. The air becomes incredibly humid, and the silence of the deep jungle takes over. In the rainforest, the weather is absolute master. Brutal, blinding downpours appear out of nowhere, soaking everything to the bone. As the storm breaks, our target reveals itself, Oyan Tepui, the Devil's Mountain, the largest of all the tabletop giants. With darkness falling quickly, it is too dangerous to navigate the river. We make camp on the muddy banks, stringing hammocks into the trees. The Amazon never sleeps. The deafening roar of the nocturnal jungle is terrifying, chaotic, and incredibly beautiful. At first light, we leave the river behind. The final push to the mountain's greatest secret must be done entirely on foot. The trail is agonizing, a nearly vertical climb through suffocating humidity, tangled roots, and deep, slippery mud. Through the suffocating heat, you hear it long before you see it, a deep, thunderous vibration shaking the very earth beneath your boots. Pushing through the final wall of jungle, the trees suddenly break, revealing a sight that completely stops your heart. This is Angel Falls, the tallest, most magnificent waterfall on the face of the earth, falling from the clouds of the lost world. Plunging over 3,200 feet, Angel Falls is an incomprehensible display of natural power. It is nearly 20 times taller than Niagara Falls. The drop is so staggeringly high that the river never actually reaches the bottom intact. It atomizes, turning completely into a massive cloud of heavy rain. To reach the very base, we must scramble over ancient rock falls, navigating a slippery, treacherous path known as Mirador Lane. As we get closer, the sound becomes deafening. The waterfall generates its own violent micro-hurricane, blasting cold wind and rain in every direction. Standing at the foot of the giant, you are instantly soaked to the bone. It is chaotic, freezing, and utterly exhilarating. The mist collects back into a roaring river at the base, forming a deep, churning pool of dark, tannin-stained water. After days of brutal jungle trekking, there is only one way to truly honor the journey. You have to take the plunge. Floating in the freezing water, staring 3,000 feet straight up the throat of Devil's Mountain, you feel incredibly, perfectly small. When the sun finally breaks through the canyon walls, the heavy mist ignites, painting massive, glowing rainbows across the gorge. There are places on Earth that command absolute silence. This isolated corner of the Amazon is one of them. But the mountain's mood changes rapidly. In minutes, thick storm clouds swallow the summit, erasing the waterfall from the sky. With the light failing and a storm brewing, we are forced into a rapid, dangerous descent back through the darkening jungle. We break through the tree line just at dusk, rushing to board the canoe before the river becomes impassable. Navigating the Amazon by night is a terrifying art. The guides rely entirely on memory and a single flashlight to avoid deadly collisions. But the danger is met with magic. Thousands of fireflies illuminate the riverbanks, blurring the line between the jungle and the cosmos. Back at camp, the adrenaline finally wears off. The physical toll of the last 2 weeks hits like a freight train. Our bodies are battered, our gear is completely ruined, but our spirits have never been higher. We fall asleep to the roar of the jungle one last time. Tomorrow, the long journey out of the lost world begins. Dawn creeps through the canopy as we pack up camp, preparing for the long, fast journey downriver. Traveling with the river's current cuts our travel time in half, but the speed introduces an entirely new set of dangers. The boat planes over hidden rocks and boils, the guides reacting with lightning-fast instincts to keep us upright. Above the roaring water, scarlet macaws streak across the sky, undisturbed by the modern world. From the air, you see how these winding waterways serve as the lifeblood of this massive, prehistoric ecosystem. We take one last look back at Devil's Mountain as its towering black walls slowly fade into the green horizon. Arriving back at Canaima Lagoon, we are greeted by the thunderous roar of its 7 surrounding waterfalls. Without the ancient knowledge and steady hands of our Pemon guides, navigating this wilderness would have been impossible. Before leaving, there is one final rite of passage, walking directly behind the massive curtain of Salto Sapo. Trapped between solid rock and a crushing wall of water, the sheer volume and roar of the falls is completely overwhelming. Breaking out from behind the cataract, the golden sun breaks through, turning the mist into a brilliant wall of light. Back on the red dirt runway, our time in the deep Amazonian wilderness officially draws to a close. We climb aboard the small bush plane, ready to take to the skies for one final, grand perspective. Lifting off, the endless canopy opens up beneath us like a vast, green ocean. At cruising altitude, the full scope of the Guiana Shield reveals itself, a fortress of ancient rock islands piercing the atmosphere. These mountains have stood unchanged for billions of years, enduring long before humanity and destined to outlast us all. Looking out over the endless horizons, you realize this journey has permanently shifted how you see the world. Now, as we fly toward civilization, we prepare to deliver the final chapter of this epic journey. As the deep darkness of the Amazon gives way to the artificial glow of city lights, the transition feels incredibly jarring. Stepping back into civilization is a massive shock to the system. The contrast between these two worlds is absolute. The physical toll of the last 3 weeks is written on my gear and etched into my muscles. But the bruises will heal and the mud will wash away. What remains is a profound shift in perspective. Mount Roraima is a fierce, ancient monument. It proves that the earth still holds secrets too massive to be tamed. Standing on its summit, looking over an endless, roadless frontier, you realize true exploration is not dead. It requires enduring discomfort, breaking past the edges of the map, and surrendering entirely to the wild. Places like Devil's Mountain and the Lost World remind us that we are guests on this planet, entirely at the mercy of its raw power. We didn't conquer the mountain, we merely survived it, carrying its ancient silence back with us into the noise. The world is massive, ancient, and waiting. Where will your lens take you next? If you enjoyed this expedition, hit the like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss an adventure. To help us fund even deeper, uncharted expeditions, check out the links in the description below. Next time on Wander Lens, we trade the sweltering jungle for the absolute zero of the high Arctic. Thank you for exploring with us. We will see you out there.